Find your favorite chair, wrap up in a soft blanket, and take a deep breath. Let the world outside slip away and settle into this quiet moment. Imagine the day's stresses gently melting off your shoulders as you ease into a world long gone, but still full of stories to tell. Tonight, we're going on a journey together, a journey back in time, to one of the most powerful empires that ever existed, the Roman Empire. But here's the twist. You won't be Julius Caesar. You won't be a senator reclining in a marble chair, sipping fine wine, or commanding armies. No, tonight, you are someone far more ordinary. Someone who lived the real story of Rome, the one the history books don't often talk about. Now, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this story if you feel the pull of ancient history. If you enjoy it, maybe consider following along for more of these tales from the past. And if you're curious, leave a comment below telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I always love to see how far these stories travel. But enough with the formalities. Dim the lights, now feel free to flick on a fan for a soft, constant hum in the background. We're about to step into a world of sandals, dirt roads, and daily struggles, though I promise you, there's humour to be found in the cracks. So, imagine this, the soft, warm glow of the sun peeking through a crack in the wall of your tiny room. And you're awake, not by choice, but because the sounds of Roman life are already bustling outside. Chickens squawking somewhere down the hall. And yes, there's a baby crying from one of the neighbouring rooms. Welcome to your Roman insula, or apartment building. It's a far cry from any grand marble palace you've likely imagined when you think of Rome. Isn't it? If you're lucky, you might even be living on the second or third floor, though I use the word lucky loosely here. The higher up you are, the worse your living conditions tend to be. And for you, my friend, that means you're on the upper floors, meaning it's probably the most cramped and dangerous space imaginable. The floors here aren't exactly known for their stability. The ceiling above you, well, it's an accident waiting to happen. That's if the olive oil spill from the floor above doesn't hit you first. You're living in a death trap of dust, weak brick, and pray to the gods' architecture. There's no window, just a small hole barely enough to let in any fresh air. Or maybe a few random pigeons looking to nest in your already too small space. Now, settle in a bit more. Picture this. Your room is no bigger than a walk-in closet. You sleep on a mattress made of straw, likely sharing it with a few unwelcome guests' lice. The blanket, it smells like damp wool and regret. There's nothing in the room except a clay cup, a worn-out tunic, and maybe a wooden comb. The lucky ones might have a few more belongings. But well, you're just like the majority holding on by a thread. And here's the kicker, there's no kitchen, no stove, no comfy chair to sit in after a long day of work. It's forbidden to cook indoors because, you see, a small fire could destroy the entire building. Fire codes haven't been invented just yet. The only comfort, your chamber pot, sitting in the corner of your room, silently judging you. And to empty it, well, you'll have to brave the rickety stairs and the thick, humid air that smells like everything. Just pray you don't fall or get caught by any passing merchant otherwise. You might be part of the morning's gossip. But before we get to all that fun, yes, I said fun, we need to do one more thing. Take a moment, just a moment, to let go of any modern comforts you may be holding on to. Maybe you'll want to grab your own blanket and cozy up because, in the world of the Romans, comfort was a distant dream. So, are you ready? Get comfortable. I promise, there's a strange sort of beauty in the struggle. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find some laughter along the way. A day in the life. The basics. You've woken up, and the day is already full of surprises. The sounds of the street below are louder now. A distant hum of market vendors, the clattering of carts, and the constant buzz of life all around. There's no time to linger in bed. After all, in Rome, the day waits for no one, especially not a poor soul like you. The first challenge of your day isn't making coffee or picking out an outfit. Oh no, that's a luxury only the rich enjoy. For you, it's much simpler if you can call it that. It's the trip down to the latrina. That's the public bathroom for those who don't have their own private facilities. And yes, everyone uses it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Imagine this. You're in your room, stretching out your tired limbs. the chill of the stone floor pressing against your feet. The sunlight barely makes it through the tiny hole in the wall, casting shadows that look like memories of a life you don't really live. The day calls, though loud and unrelenting. You slip out of bed and reach for your clothes, probably a tunic that's seen better days, and brace yourself for the climb down. The stairs are steep and creaky, every step a reminder that you're living in a building constructed with about as much thought as a sandcastle on the beach. The building wobbles beneath your feet, like it might give way at any moment. If you live on a high floor, you get used to the feeling of impending disaster, but you don't have the luxury to dwell on that right now. Your first mission is to make it downstairs, holding your chamber pot in one hand like a dirty secret, trying not to trip over the loose bricks in the stairwell. You'll have to navigate the narrow halls, weaving between the other residents, most of them still half asleep or already scrambling to start their days. You'll probably bump into someone, or worse, someone else will bump into you, and your chamber pot might end up spilling. Let's hope you're a quick thinker. There's no time for embarrassment in Rome. If you want to survive, you need to keep moving. Now, you're out on the street. The air smells a bit better here, though. That's not saying much. The sun's already high, and you can hear the familiar yells of merchants setting up their stalls. Figs, fish, bread, everything smells strangely enticing. But you can't afford any of it. Still, the market is the pulse of the city, and you're right in the middle of it all. You finally make it to the latrina. The public restroom, a true Roman experience. There's a long stone bench with holes cut into it. Each person sitting there, with just a thin separation from the next. No doors, no privacy. You might end up next to a politician, a labourer, or worse, a neighbour whose conversations you'd rather not hear. The air is thick with, well, let's just say it's not fresh. And there you are, squatting next to a complete stranger, both of you pretending it's normal to talk about grain prices or recent political turmoil while you're occupied. You do your business, praying for the best, but there's no escaping the reality. This is the price of survival in ancient Rome. But here's the kicker, there's a shared sponge. Yes, you heard me right. The tersorium, a communal sponge on a stick, soaked in vinegar or salt water. And it's used by everyone. You're supposed to rinse it before you use it. But let's be honest, nobody's too concerned with hygiene at this point. You wipe, hesitate, and just pray the vinegar did its job. Welcome to Rome's version of public health. And if you think you can skip out on the latrina and relieve yourself in a corner, think again. Public urination is illegal. You'll get fined, or worse, punished. The law is not kind to anyone who doesn't respect public order. So, with your hands still not as clean as you'd like because, spoiler alert, there's no soap, you leave the latrina feeling lighter, but also a little bit dead inside. Not exactly the refreshing start to your day, but hey, at least you're still alive. Next up, breakfast, or what the Romans consider breakfast. Forget about a morning cup of coffee. In fact, forget about breakfast entirely. For the average Roman citizen, this first meal of the day isn't about feeling full or satisfied. It's just a formality, something to keep you going until you get to work. On the menu today, a hunk of stale bread. Not fresh, not soft. This bread is hard and chewy, often baked yesterday or maybe the day before. If you're lucky, it's panis rusticus, a rustic loaf made with whatever grains they could scrape together. Think of it as a chewable rock. Minus the flavour. You could probably use it to knock someone out if you wanted to. There's also watered down wine. No, you're not getting a glass of the finest vintage. The Romans knew better than to drink strong wine first thing in the morning. The wine's so diluted. It's more like weak juice than an actual drink. If you're in a really good mood, maybe there'll be a slice of cheese or a few olives. But mostly, it's bread and wine. That's your breakfast. You're eating this standing up on the street. Mind you, there's no dining room or cozy kitchen. The whole town is up and at it. If you're lucky, you'll find a corner by a fountain to eat. But you'll probably have company. Other poor souls are just as unimpressed by their meal, shoving down their stale bread as quickly as possible. No time for enjoying food when there's a day of hard labour ahead. And there you have it. Your day has officially started. The sun's up. You're filled with wine and despair. And the road ahead is, well, it's not exactly a road of luxury. But hey, that's Rome for you. Welcome to the grind. My friend, the early morning struggle. The sun is now high, and the streets of Rome are buzzing with activity. The sounds of the city growing louder, but you, my friend, still have one more thing to deal with before you can really start your day. And that thing is your bladder. Let's talk about Roman convenience, or rather, the complete lack of it. You've just finished your very underwhelming breakfast, and now, like any normal human being, you have to relieve yourself, but there's no nice little bathroom waiting for you in your apartment. Remember, cooking and private bathrooms are luxuries for the wealthy, not for hard-working folks like you. What you do have is your trusty chamber pot, sitting quietly in the corner of your tiny room, always waiting for you to do its dirty work. And today's the day you get to carry it down 3 flights of stairs, past your still groggy neighbours, who might be getting their own start to the day with a prayer or a bicker over something trivial. The stairs themselves are a testament to Rome's general disregard for comfort. They creak with each step, swaying slightly, like a forgotten ship on a stormy sea, and you're the poor soul at the helm, guiding your little chamber pot down with the utmost care, hoping you don't trip on a loose stone or, even worse, spill it on yourself. If you make it down to the bottom, you'll find that the street is already crowded with merchants, children, and donkeys. The vendors are yelling prices for their wares, and the smell of warm bread fills the air. But you're not there to shop. No, your destination is the public latrina, the Roman equivalent of a bathroom, though public is perhaps too generous a word for it. Here's the catch, though. This isn't just any ordinary public restroom. Oh no, this is a Roman latrina, where privacy is as much of a luxury as your morning cup of coffee, which, spoiler alert, you still won't be getting today. You approach it cautiously, your chamber pot clutched like a dirty secret. The latrina is a long stone bench, with holes carved into it for people to do their business. No dividers, no walls, just you and several strangers, all sitting side by side in perfect unison. No modesty, no shame. It's as if privacy is a concept they've never even heard of. Welcome to Roman society, where you can't even relieve yourself in peace, as you sit down trying not to make awkward eye contact with your neighbour, who's now loudly discussing last night's gladiator fights. You realise that the walls are so thin, you can hear everything: people arguing, gossiping, even praying. Some are discussing the price of grain. Others are complaining about their children. One man, to your horror, seems to be eating olives without breaking eye contact with you. Yes, eating olives. And then comes the real treat. You've probably heard of the communal sponge on a stick, right? Well, that's your only option for cleaning yourself. Known as the tersorium, it's a sponge soaked in vinegar or salt water, and everyone shares it. No, there's no hand sanitizer, no soap, just a quick rinse of the sponge if you're lucky. And then you use it, because it's being used by everyone. Don't worry, though it's not as bad as it sounds. Well, okay, it's exactly as bad as it sounds. You just hope the vinegar did its job. Once you're done, you don't wash your hands in a nice sink with running water. Oh no, there's no soap, no fresh water. Instead, you rinse your hands in a communal basin that's seen more hands than any handshake competition you've ever witnessed. So, you leave the latrina feeling a little lighter, but let's just say, not particularly cleaner, but hey, at least you made it out alive. And now, it's time for the next thing on your list. You're ready for the day, sort of, but not really. You've survived the latrina, barely survived the indignities of Roman sanitation, and now you've got to get to work. Yes, work. The Romans don't just give handouts. No matter how bad you want to lie back and dream of a soft mattress or a hot meal, it's time to roll up your sleeves and get moving. But before you start thinking about the grueling work ahead, let's take a moment to remember something important. This is just your morning. That's right. There are still hours to go before you can collapse into bed, praying for a better day tomorrow. But for now, you've survived the latrina. And that's something. Now, off to work. But first, let's grab some more stale bread and diluted wine, because a Roman's gotta eat, right? Or the real breakfast or lack thereof. So, you've just survived the latrina barely, and now you're ready for a little something to start your day, right? A nice breakfast. Maybe a cup of coffee, something to take the edge off. Well, I hate to break it to you, but in ancient Rome, breakfast is a bit of a stretch. Forget about hot pancakes, eggs, or bacon things you probably can't imagine living without. Your breakfast today is a lump of stale, rock-hard bread. This bread is no soft, fluffy slice of heaven. Oh no. This is a dense, chewy chunk of panis rusticus, basically. Rustic bread. But rustic here is a nice way of saying chewy enough to break your teeth. You might have been better off eating a brick. You chew and chew, your jaw growing sore with each bite. But it's all you've got. If you're really lucky, maybe there's a thin spread of olive oil or a few shriveled olives on the side. Sometimes, if you're fortunate enough, there's a crumb of cheese, but don't get your hopes up. It's mostly just bread. Tough, dense, and unyielding. It's the kind of bread that might make you wonder how you could use it to build a house instead of eating it. Now, for the beverage, watered down wine. Ah yes, this lovely morning treat. No, it's not a glass of the finest Roman vintage. It's diluted to the point where it's barely recognizable as wine. If you're trying to get a caffeine kick, you're out of luck. The Romans knew better than to drink strong wine first thing in the morning. Instead, they'd dilute it with water, presumably because starting your day hammered was frowned upon unless you were a senator. Of course, the wine you're drinking isn't going to lift your spirits. In fact, it's more likely to make you feel mildly dehydrated than satisfied. You can barely taste it, but it's enough to wash down your bread if you can call it that and get you through the next few hours. The lack of real food means you're just trying to stay alive until lunch. If you're lucky enough to get a proper meal, then, as you stand there, chewing your food and pretending it doesn't taste like drywall, you're surrounded by the same scene you've encountered each morning. You're standing on a busy Roman street. Your fellow citizens just as unimpressed by their own meals as you are. You're all eating your sad little pieces of bread, the wine sloshing in your stomach, while merchants shout their prices for goods you can't afford. Someone nearby might be making a living by selling figs, others by selling fish guts, and if you're lucky, there might be someone with a few hot chickpea fritters that you could only dream of purchasing. But no, you're just another person getting through the morning, all while watching someone else enjoy food they actually want to eat. But wait, the best part of breakfast is yet to come. You're now ready to get to work. Nope, no lounging around today. There's no time for that. As soon as you've managed to choke down your half-swallowed bread and diluted wine, it's time to head out and join the Roman workforce. If you're lucky, you might have an easy day ahead, working as a street cleaner or a potter. But more likely than not, you're going to be hauling bricks, digging ditches, or performing some other back-breaking labor under the scorching sun. You might be working alongside others, just like you, or if you're unlucky, under the supervision of a ruthless foreman who thinks nothing of cracking a whip or yelling at you until you've lost the will to live. Your tools are basic, maybe a shovel or a wooden bucket, and your clothing won't do much to protect you from the sun or the blisters that are already forming on your hands. Welcome to the Roman workday. If you think it's all luxurious marble baths and well-fed gladiators, think again. The average Roman citizen works hard for the scraps they can scrape together. And you, my friend, are no exception. You're in the trenches now, and once you step out into the street, the chaos that is Rome awaits. The beauty of the Roman world, however, lies not in its marble and grandeur, but in its resilience. Despite the hardships, people survive here, scraping by with whatever they can muster. And who knows, maybe as you trudge through the streets, covered in dust, tired from the hard work, you might just find a moment of humor in it all. A quick exchange of jokes with a fellow laborer. A moment of laughter that makes the struggle just a little easier to bear. Because in this world, survival isn't just about strength, it's about finding moments of lightness when you can. And so, you take one last bite of your bread, wash it down with your watered down wine, and prepare for the real grind to begin. The day isn't over yet, but you've got this. Or at least, you tell yourself you do. The chaotic streets of Rome. Welcome to the madness. The day has been long, and as the sun sets, you think you might finally get a break. But don't get too comfortable yet, because once you step out onto the bustling Roman streets, you realize that the work doesn't stop just because the sun's gone down. The streets of Rome are alive with noise, chaos, and the never-ending flow of people, animals, and carts. This is where the real madness happens. My friend, you thought your workday was hard. Wait until you navigate the streets of this bustling city. The streets, a river of life and waste. As you walk through the crowded street, the first thing you'll notice is the sheer volume of people. It's almost impossible to find any space to breathe between the jostling crowds. Romans, rich and poor alike, are constantly on the move. You're likely to bump shoulders with a wealthy merchant on his way to meet a client or a beggar who's looking for scraps of food. It's a mix of smells, sounds, and sights that could leave anyone dizzy. And it's not just the people that make it chaotic. There are donkeys, carts, and stray animals weaving through the crowd. The ground is uneven, filled with potholes and discarded garbage. Don't be surprised if you step into something unpleasant. And, oh, the smells. The combination of sweat, sewage, and burning incense fills the air, making it almost impossible to avoid the stench of the street. The Romans, it seems, were used to it. Watch your step. The streets are a danger zone. But the real danger isn't just the crowds or the stench. It's the traffic. Roman roads are engineered to perfection, but that doesn't mean they're safe. Carts filled with goods race down the narrow streets. And if you're unlucky enough to find yourself in the way of a speeding horse or chariot, well, let's just say you don't want to be there. Roman laws actually banned heavy cart traffic during the day, which seems like a good idea, until you realize that this rule is completely ignored. The roads are chaotic, with people and carts moving in all directions. If you're not paying attention, you'll find yourself knocked over or trampled in the blink of an eye. You better be quick on your feet and aware of your surroundings, or you might become part of the morning gossip, likely in the form of, "Oh, did you hear about the poor soul who got run over by a chariot yesterday?" The noise. Can you hear yourself think? In addition to the crowds and the carts, there's another thing you'll have to contend with. The noise. Rome is loud, and not just in the usual way. Everywhere you go, there's a constant roar of voices, vendors hawking their wares, children playing, and soldiers yelling orders. Even the animals seem to have something to say. Don't be surprised if a goat runs past you bleating at the top of its lungs, or a donkey refuses to move without letting everyone know it's unhappy. This is the heartbeat of Rome, and it never stops. The noise never quiets down, and even as night falls, the city remains awake. In fact, there's always something going on, somewhere. If you're hoping for a peaceful moment of solitude in the streets, you can forget it. The sound of merchants yelling prices for figs, fish, and vegetables fills the air, mingling with the occasional shout from a soldier, or the laughter of someone trying to sell their latest invention. But despite all the noise, there's an undeniable rhythm to it. It's as if Rome itself is alive and breathing. The streets are its veins, and the people are its lifeblood. There's a certain energy to this chaotic city that you can't help but be caught up in, even if you don't quite understand it. Night falls. A different kind of danger, as the sun dips below the horizon. The chaos of the streets only intensifies. Now, instead of workers rushing home to rest, the night brings with it a different kind of energy. People are out for fun, for mischief, for trouble. If you thought the daytime streets were dangerous, night in Rome takes things to a whole new level. The city is still loud, but now it's filled with the noise of drunkards, thieves, and gladiators. You'd better stay on your toes, because the streets of Rome aren't just crowded, they're downright treacherous at night. The taverns and the street fights. The taverns are where the action is. Roman taverns are loud and rowdy places full of drunk men shouting, singing, and sometimes fighting. If you're thirsty enough, you might venture inside, but be careful. There's always the chance you'll find yourself in the middle of an argument, or worse, a brawl. It's not all fun and games in the streets. Either street fights break out at all hours, a disagreement over a spilled drink, a bit of loud talk, or even just bad luck could escalate into a full-on brawl. And when that happens, it's every man and woman for themselves. If you're not quick to move, you might get caught in the middle of it all. The danger of the dark, thieves and muggers. It's not just the noise and the fights that make nightfall dangerous. Thieves and muggers are out in full force. The streets are dark, and if you're not careful, Someone might just decide to make you their next target. They don't care about who you are. They only care about getting something valuable from you, whether it's a coin pouch, a bit of jewelry, or even just your sandals, because in Rome, anything can be worth something. A thief will snatch it away the moment you're distracted. Fire and the dark alleys, a double threat. And if thieves don't get you, there's still the threat of fire. The buildings in Rome are mostly made of wood. And at night, when everyone is asleep, a fire can spread through a block faster than you can shout help. A single oil lamp left unattended, or someone cooking past curfew, and the whole neighborhood might go up in smoke. There's no organized fire department, only the vigiles, a mix of underpaid night watchmen and firefighters. But they're overworked and, frankly, not always very effective. If a fire starts, there's a good chance that it will burn down everything in its path, including your little apartment. The reality of Roman nightlife. As night falls over the streets of Rome, everything takes on a new sense of urgency. People move faster, talk louder, and the energy feels more dangerous. You can't escape the feeling that danger is always just a step behind you, waiting for the wrong move to happen. But in the midst of it all, there's a strange comfort. You're alive, aren't you? You've made it through the workday. Now, just a few more steps to home or wherever your feet lead you next. The long walk home, or not, after surviving the chaotic streets of Rome at night, you find yourself yearning for a little peace, a tiny sanctuary from the madness. But peace in Rome isn't exactly a thing. The walk home isn't much better than the street itself. The alleys are narrow and dark, the air thick with smoke from the cooking fires, the scent of incense from the temples, and the unmistakable odor of human sweat. But you push forward, every step feeling heavier than the last, each creaky floorboard of your insula looming in your mind like a reminder of how little comfort your home provides. Navigating the streets at night, a game of survival. As you move down the dimly lit alleys, the sounds of the city seem to fade, replaced by the unsettling quiet of the night. But don't get too comfortable. There's always something lurking in the shadows. The darkness is more than just a lack of light. It's where danger thrives. In the silence of the night, you're more vulnerable than you realize. You're a target, just like anyone else, and the city knows it. The shadows seem to watch you, waiting for you to slip up, whether it's a thief ready to pounce or a desperate beggar asking for a handout. The streets are full of people looking to take advantage of anyone who's too tired, too distracted, or too weary to notice. You may try to keep your head down, avoid eye contact, but Rome's streets never let you forget that you're always at risk. It's a game where the stakes are your very survival. The fateful intersection, fire or theft. As you round the corner, you spot something that makes your heart skip a beat, a faint glow in the distance. At first, it seems like the warm light of a street lamp, but as you get closer, you realize it's coming from the direction of your insula. Is it a fire? It could be Rome's wooden buildings, stacked high on one another like precarious Jenga blocks, are notorious for their flammability. You've seen it happen before. One careless spark, one oil lamp left unattended, and an entire block could burn to the ground in mere hours. Fire is the real enemy at night, more terrifying than any thief or beggar. You start walking faster, the dread rising in your chest. But wait, something's off. The streets feel empty. Why is no one rushing to put out the fire? Why are there no screams or the sound of the vigiles charging down the road? It's too quiet, too still. The first real moment of relief, a welcome distraction. And then, as you approach the glow, you finally realize the source isn't a fire at all. It's a parade of sorts, a group of drunken Romans stumbling through the street, celebrating who knows what, a random festival, an impromptu gathering. They don't seem to care. They're singing loudly, shouting, and making a ruckus without a care for the people living in these streets. It's not much, but it's enough to provide a brief respite. You stand there, taking it all in, the chaotic energy of the city now almost soothing in its familiarity. They might not have a care in the world, but for a moment, you feel a little lighter. Laughter echoes through the alleys. Even if it's slightly off-key, the energy is contagious, and for just a few minutes, you allow yourself to laugh along with the noise. A rare sight. Silence among the chaos. After a few moments of watching the festivities, you start walking again. Cautiously, but with renewed determination, you're getting close to your insula now, and as you approach the familiar stone structure, your mind races. Another night of barely enough food, another day of backbreaking labor to look forward to, and yet you feel something shift inside you. It's strange. In a place as chaotic as Rome, with its bustling streets and terrifying nights, there's something oddly beautiful about the simplicity of your survival. It's not much, but it's enough to keep you going. Home sweet, insula. You finally reach the front door of your insula. It's not much of a door. Honestly, just a wooden frame that barely keeps the elements out. You fumble with the makeshift lock, cursing under your breath as it sticks. And then, finally, you're inside. The room is dark, save for the flicker of a dying candle sitting in the corner, the smell of damp stone, stale wool, and the ever-present scent of the street is overwhelming. You take a deep breath. Home. It's not a place of luxury. It's not a sanctuary of comfort. But it's yours. The nightfall routine. The calm before tomorrow's storm. You drop your worn-out tunic onto the floor, kicking off your sandals and sinking onto the straw-stuffed mattress. It's cold here, and the stone walls of your room offer no warmth, no solace. But there's something about this moment, this stillness before the storm of another day, that brings a sense of calm. You think about tomorrow, another long day, another grueling shift, but it's also another day of survival. Another chance to make it through, despite the overwhelming chaos that seems to follow you everywhere. The fire from earlier, the drunken parade, it all fades into the background. Like the noise of Rome itself, there's only you, your bed of straw, and the knowledge that tomorrow, the grind will begin all over again. The final reflection, a quiet lesson in resilience. As you lie there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, you realize something you hadn't fully processed yet. You're here. You've made it through the madness of the streets, the backbreaking work, the noise of the crowds, and the dangers of the night, and you're still alive. In a world that doesn't care if you live or die, there's something powerful about just surviving. In the chaos of Rome, survival is an art. And right now, you're an artist, not in the sense of grand sculptures or masterpieces, but in the quiet strength it takes to survive in a world that gives you nothing. Tomorrow, you'll do it again. But for now, you close your eyes, and despite the noise of the world outside, you fall into a deep, deserved sleep. Tomorrow is another day of challenges. But for tonight, you rest. You've earned it. The morning after, a new day in Rome. Morning breaks, and with it comes a harsh reminder of your reality in the Roman Empire. The sunlight sneaks its way through the small hole in your wall, your window casting a pale glow across the room. You groggily pull yourself from the mattress, a strange comfort in its lumpy, straw-stuffed embrace. The damp wool of your blanket sticks to your skin as you stretch, groaning slightly at the soreness that's already setting in. Welcome to another day of survival. You sit on the edge of your bed for a moment, rubbing your tired eyes, trying to shake the sleep from your bones. You already know what's waiting for you outside. The same chaos, the same dirt, the same grind that has defined your life since you first arrived in Rome. There's no time for lingering under the covers, no time to enjoy the stillness of morning. The city is awake, and so must you be. The ritual of getting ready, an exercise in patience. You reach for the tunic you left lying in a heap beside the mattress, shaking the wrinkles out of it as best as you can. There's no luxury of fresh clothing, no soft linens, just what you've managed to make do with. You take a quick look at yourself in the small mirror, more of a polished piece of metal than a true mirror, and take in the sight of your tired face. Your body is already showing the signs of wear and tear. You've got calluses on your hands from the day-to-day labor, dirt under your nails that refuses to budge, and that constant smell of sweat and stone lingering on your skin no matter how many times you wash. But there's nothing to do about it. This is your life, and you wear it proudly, even if it means waking up to this same tired routine every single day. Another trip down the stairs, avoiding the chaos. The stairs of your insula creak beneath your feet as you make your way down. The building seems to groan in protest every time you step on a loose board, as if it knows you're here just to survive the day. Other residents of the insula are already up and about, preparing for their own versions of the grind. Some are rushing, some are slow-moving, but all of them share the same look in their eyes. A tired, weary resignation to their fate. You're not alone in this fight, but sometimes it sure feels like it. The sense of community in these buildings is fragile, built more out of necessity than actual friendship. People help each other when they have to, but everyone is just trying to survive, and that's about all the connection there is. A few nods of acknowledgement, a few murmured greetings, but nothing more. There's no time for deeper relationships when the day ahead demands everything from you. A new challenge, the morning rush, as you step outside into the already busy streets. The rush of the morning hits you like a wave. Rome doesn't sleep. It's a machine that keeps churning no matter what. The streets are already packed with vendors shouting, carts rolling by, children darting through the crowds, and animals braying at the edges of the market. The air is thick with the smells of food, waste, and people, and it's all too much, too fast. But you've learned to navigate it, to keep your head down, and to blend into the hustle of the crowd. It's a delicate dance if you're not careful. You might get knocked into a passing cart or trampled by someone rushing by, their sandals slapping against the pavement. It's always like this in the morning, and you've learned to accept it as part of the rhythm of life in the Roman Empire. If you don't move fast enough, you're left behind. The market and the people you'll never know. The market is in full swing by now. Merchants yell out prices for figs, bread, fish, and anything else they can move before the sun reaches its peak. You weave through the crowd, not stopping for anything, barely noticing the wares being sold. You've seen it all before, the same fruits, the same vegetables, the same fish that probably should have been thrown away yesterday. But it's all part of the routine. You're not here to shop, you're here to survive. The threat of the streets, a constant presence. As you move along the market, you catch a glimpse of someone moving suspiciously between the crowds. Someone who doesn't belong here. Someone with that look in their eyes. A thief. You know, the type. Their eyes dart around, sizing up potential victims. You don't make eye contact. Don't give away any sign that you've noticed them. You keep moving, pretending not to care. Because if you don't keep moving, if you don't stay aware of every single step you take, someone will take advantage of your distraction. Thieves are the constant shadow on the Roman streets. Their presence always lingering just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. It's a game of cat and mouse, and you've learned to play it well. You've lost too many possessions already to the pickpockets of the city. You know better now. The labor starts again. No rest for the weary. The time has come to get to work. You've survived the morning chaos. But now comes the hardest part. The work, it's the same everyday hard labor that pushes you to the limit, with no guarantee of reward. Whether you're moving bricks for a new aqueduct, working as a street cleaner, or laboring in a shop, doesn't matter. The work is grueling, but it's the price you pay to stay alive in this empire. You trudge to your assigned station, the rhythm of your footsteps matching the rhythm of your heart. The sweat starts pouring down your face even before you've picked up your tools. The Roman sun is no friend to the working class. It beats down mercilessly, as if trying to prove who's really in charge. You're nothing but a cog in the machine, one of thousands of laborers that keeps Rome's heart pumping. But that's okay. You've learned to accept it. The cycle continues, another day, another challenge. The grind continues. The hours pass slowly, but relentlessly. The aches in your body deepen, the weight of the work heavier, but you keep moving forward. There's no alternative. The alternative is the streets, the homeless, the beggars, the ones who couldn't keep up with the pace of this empire. You won't be one of them. You refuse to be, and so, with every step, every load you carry, you push forward, knowing that tomorrow will bring the same. But for now, you've survived today. That's enough for now. But as the day goes on, as the sun sets and the streets begin to quiet once again, you realize something quietly remarkable. You're not just surviving, you're enduring, and in the Roman Empire, that's something to be proud of. You might be poor, you might be tired, but no one can take away your resilience. The night begins, the city of shadows. The sun sets, casting a deep orange hue over the horizon, and Rome's true character begins to reveal itself as the city quiets down. Just a little. The noise of the marketplace, the sounds of clanging hammers, and the shouting of merchants start to fade away. But Just because the sun goes down doesn't mean the city sleeps. Oh no, Rome, for all its grandeur, is far from peaceful at night. The cool night air sweeps through the streets, but the city's pulse is far from slowing down. A different kind of chaos, the Roman nightlife. As the stars take their place in the sky, the streets come alive with a new energy. This isn't the hustle of merchants peddling their wares or children running about. This is something darker, something raw. The taverns start to fill up with rowdy patrons, the clinking of goblets and mugs, joining the familiar sounds of conversation, laughter and slurred speech. Gladiators who've just finished their day's training gather around, boasting about their skills and talking about fights that might never happen. Soldiers drink to forget the day's battles, while men and women who've seen too many days of hard work find solace in the bottom of their wine cup. This is when you begin to see the darker side of Rome, the underbelly that doesn't often get discussed in the grand temples and marble halls. The drunken rebellion, a taste of Rome's chaos. You're walking through the streets, tired from your day of labor, and suddenly you hear shouting from a nearby tavern. You slow your pace and glance inside, where you see a rowdy brawl taking place. Two men, each holding a tankard of wine, are arguing about something insignificant. Probably the taste of the wine or which gladiator is superior. The conversation quickly escalates, and before you know it, their mugs are flying across the room, and fists are replacing words. In the midst of this, you catch the eye of a woman, sitting off to the side, sipping her wine in peace, her gaze calm despite the chaos around her. It's a strange scene, but in Rome, this kind of thing happens more often than you'd like to admit. A fight breaks out over something trivial, and the crowd roars with laughter as the two men roll around on the ground, trying to land a hit. But it's not all fun and games. You watch carefully, staying out of the fray, because you know that in a city this big and this dangerous, you can never predict when a playful brawl might turn into something much more serious. The streets at night, a dangerous game. As you walk deeper into the heart of the city, the sounds of drunken laughter and shouting grow fainter. The streets start to become darker, more foreboding, as the shadows seem to stretch longer across the cobblestone roads. You're not quite sure what's more unsettling, the empty alleyways that seem to call out to you, or the distant howling of a dog as it scampers across the road. You've seen enough of this city to know that in the dark, nothing is what it seems. Your pace quickens as you approach a corner, but just as you think you've found safety, you realize the street is narrower than you remembered. The buildings loom closer, like walls closing in on you. Your senses are on high alert. Something feels wrong. You look over your shoulder but see nothing. You pick up the pace, heart pounding in your chest. A brush with danger, thieves and strangers. As you round the corner, a figure steps out from the shadows. It's a man, thin, wearing tattered clothes, his eyes wide with something like hunger or maybe desperation. You brace yourself, but before you can react, the man speaks. "Spare a coin, friend. Just a little something for my children. Please." You freeze for a moment. The desperation in his voice is hard to ignore, but you know better than to trust a stranger at this hour. You shake your head slightly, trying to move past him, but the man steps forward. Blocking your path, his hand reaches for your coin pouch. Without thinking, you instinctively step back, hand on the pouch. His eyes narrow in recognition, and for a second, it feels like the whole world slows down. But you know the rules of the street. You know how this game works. With a swift move, you shift your stance and push past him. Continuing down the road, his call for help echoes behind you, but you don't stop. In Rome, you can't afford to be kind to everyone. There are too many who would take advantage of that kindness, and you've learned that lesson well. The safe house, back to reality. You keep walking, every step feeling heavier, until you finally reach the familiar sight of your insula. The stone building looms in front of you, looking just as unwelcoming as it did that morning. But it's home. For better or worse, you're inside the building before long, shutting the door behind you with a sigh of relief. The street, with all its dangers, feels like a distant memory as you drop your worn sandals and settle into the familiar, albeit cold, quiet of your room. Your mind races a bit from the encounter with the thief, but slowly it quiets. You're safe, For now, a moment of quiet, the stillness of home. You lean against the stone wall, finally able to breathe. The fire in the corner of the room flickers faintly, casting soft shadows against the rough walls. It's not much, but at least it's yours. Your bed is nothing more than straw stuffed into a wooden frame. But you don't mind. At the end of a long day, it's more than enough to sleep on. As you lie back, staring at the dim ceiling above you, the noises of the street seem to fade into the background. For a moment, you let yourself forget about the city, the chaos, the violence, the constant sense of danger that lurks in every corner. For just a moment, it's just you and the stillness of your insula. You close your eyes, letting the silence wrap around you, and let sleep take over. Tomorrow will come soon enough, and the grind will start again. But for now, in the stillness of the night, you allow yourself this small luxury, a few hours of peace before the madness begins anew. The morning dread, the relentless cycle. The peace of the night is fleeting, replaced once again by the harsh light of dawn. Pulling you out of your fleeting slumber, the light creeps in through the small hole in your wall once more, waking you with its cold clarity. You groggily stretch and pull yourself from your bed of straw, the aches of yesterday's labor already creeping back into your joints. The room feels colder this morning than it did last night, the stone walls unrelenting in their chill. But the clock is ticking, and there's no time to waste. The streets of Rome are already waking up, and so must you. The morning routine, a reluctant ritual. You shuffle to your small, makeshift mirror, squinting at your reflection. The shadows under your eyes are more pronounced today. The wear of your life in Rome clearer than ever. You pull on your tunic, its worn fabric doing little to shield you from the cold. It's not much, but it's enough to get you through the day. You pause for a moment, taking a breath. This is the rhythm of life, the harsh reality that you've come to accept. This is your world now getting dressed, stepping into the same cold streets, day in and day out, each morning blending into the next. As you gather your things, your mind starts to drift toward the day ahead. Another day of back-breaking labor, more sweat, more dust, more struggle, the same exhaustion, the same grind. But you know there's no choice. This is the Roman Empire where survival is a luxury, and even that feels out of reach some days. Breakfast, a quick bite of reality. With barely any time to spare, you grab a quick bite to eat. Breakfast in Rome, if you can even call it that, is not a meal meant to fill you. It's not meant to satisfy. It's just a fuel to get you through to the next hardship. A few crumbles of stale bread, some watered-down wine, and if you're lucky, a small handful of olives. But that's it. Your stomach growls, but you don't have the luxury of savoring food. There's no time to sit down and enjoy a meal. There's work waiting for you. So you chew quickly, swallowing the bitterness and moving on. Leaving the insula, facing the streets once more, you step outside, bracing yourself for the same overwhelming sight of Rome's streets. The air is already thick with the smell of vendors setting up their stalls, the distant clatter of carts, and the first signs of life in the city. It's a cacophony of sounds, sights, and smells. But nothing prepares you for what you'll encounter in the streets today. The usual rush of people, animals, and carts greets you as you step onto the cobblestone streets. But there's something different in the air this time. A certain urgency that you can feel in the way the people walk, the way the merchants shout, the way the city seems to vibrate with anticipation. The workday begins, a relentless march. Your journey to the worksite feels longer than usual today. The labor is always grueling, but something about the weight of today feels heavier than most. Maybe it's the heat, or maybe it's just the weariness in your bones that you can't shake. The sun beats down relentlessly, the air stifling as you push through the crowds. As you make your way to the worksite, your mind starts to drift thinking of the heavy stone, the hard labor ahead, and the never-ending cycle of work that has become your life. You wonder if there's more to life than this, if there's a way out. But deep down, you know the truth. This is Rome. There is no escaping the grind. And so, you take a deep breath and get to work. You've got a job to do, and Rome is watching. The harsh reality, sweat and strain. You arrive at the construction site, and the foreman is already barking orders. It's the same routine, the same grueling labor, and the same lack of care for your well-being. Your hands grip the shovel, and you start to dig. You feel the strain in your back, the ache in your shoulders, the sweat dripping down your face. The stones are heavy, the labor hard, but there's no time to think about it. The only thing that matters is the next task, the next strike of the hammer, the next shovelful of dirt to move. As you work, your mind drifts back to the streets you walked this morning, and a bitter thought forms. This is life in Rome, survive the day, just to wake up and do it all again tomorrow. And yet, despite the exhaustion, the pain, and the sheer monotony of it all, there's a strange sense of pride in the work. You're building the empire, brick by brick, stone by stone. Even if the world will never remember your name, even if you're just another anonymous laborer in a sea of workers, you know that what you're doing matters. You're contributing to something far bigger than yourself. A brief respite, the lunch break. When the bell rings for lunch, you finally get a chance to sit down. You're exhausted, every muscle aching, every part of your body screaming for rest. The food is just as sparse as usual bread. A few olives, maybe a small piece of cheese. You eat quickly, not even tasting it, knowing that there's no point in trying to savor a meal when you're already thinking about the work that's waiting for you after. As you take a moment to breathe, you look around at the others, eating with you workers who are all in the same boat, fighting the same battle. It's a strange camaraderie that forms among people who are all struggling for the same thing, survival. There's little conversation, just the quiet clinking of metal on stone and the occasional sigh of someone who's just as tired as you are. But in this brief moment of respite, you feel a connection with your fellow workers. You're all in this together. Whether you like it or not, back to work, the cycle continues. The afternoon hours drag on like a slow march to the inevitable. Every shovelful of dirt feels heavier. Every stone feels more immovable. You're aching, but there's no room for complaint. The foreman is watching, and you know that if you slow down, someone else will take your place. As the day wears on, you start to feel the weight of the city on your shoulders. It's not just the physical labor, it's the realization that you'll likely never leave this life. The thought settles in your chest like a stone, but you push it aside. There's no room for weakness, no room for regret. You can't afford it. The end of the day, relief. For now, by the time the sun starts to dip below the horizon, signaling the end of your shift, you're beyond exhausted. Your hands are raw, your back aches, and your head is pounding from the heat. But there's relief in knowing that the day is over. You gather your things, wipe the sweat from your brow, and head back into the streets of Rome. The hustle of the city continues. But tonight, you're just another face in the crowd, heading back to your insula to rest. Another day in Rome has passed, and tomorrow, the grind will start again. But for now, there's a brief moment of peace, the comfort of night, a return to the familiar. You make your way back to the insula, the place that has become both your refuge and your prison. As the city begins to cool, the air still carries the remnants of the heat from the day, but it's bearable now. You push past the busy street vendors packing up their goods, the sound of children playing fading as they're called inside. The weight of the day still sits heavily on your shoulders, and your tired feet drag with each step. You're almost home. The stairs, a journey that never ends. When you reach the familiar front of your insula, it's hard not to feel a small sense of relief. The street noise dulls as you step inside, and you let out a quiet sigh. But just as quickly, you remember the stairs, the never-ending, rickety stairs that lead to your room. They creak under your weight, their instability a reminder that nothing in Rome is built to last. It's a journey you've made countless times, but that doesn't make it any easier. The stairs are narrow, and the wooden beams shake with every step. You try not to think about how close the ceiling is above your head, how fragile the whole structure feels. You could be living in a safer, more comfortable place, but not here. Not in this city. Here, safety is a luxury only the wealthy can afford. You grip the railing tightly, feeling the splinters press into your hand. When you finally reach your floor, there's a brief moment of quiet before you push open the door to your room. The familiar chill of the stone walls greets you. It's not warm, but it's yours. A bed of straw, the final rest. You step inside, closing the door behind you with a gentle thud. The stillness of the room is like a balm to your weary soul. The air is cool, but at least you're safe for now. You drop your things and sink onto the straw mattress, the only thing that separates you from the cold stone floor. Your body aches in places you didn't know existed, but you lie back, closing your eyes for a moment of peace. Your mind drifts for a moment, not to the tasks of tomorrow, but to the simple reality of the bed beneath you, the quiet of your small room. It's a strange comfort. The smell of damp wool and the weight of exhaustion makes it hard to stay awake, and you let the stillness take over. For a few minutes, there is no rush, no expectation. It's rare, this quiet moment, and you allow yourself to savor it, but you know it's fleeting, and the thought of tomorrow's grind rises in your mind like a slow tide. The noise from next door, the reality of shared living. Just as you start to relax, the reality of insular living sets in. The noise from the neighboring rooms filters through the thin walls' arguments, laughter, even the sounds of a baby crying. The walls here are thin, so much so that you can hear every movement of your neighbors. Even if you don't want to, privacy is a luxury, and it's something you've long since accepted. You won't get here. You roll over, pulling your blanket closer around you, trying to ignore the sounds of life outside your door. But no matter how hard you try, you're not alone in this. The whole building shares the same struggles, the same lack of space, and the same aching bodies. A brief moment of reflection. Why do we keep going? As you lie there in the dim light, your thoughts drift to the larger questions, the ones you don't allow yourself to dwell on too often. Why do you keep going? Why does anyone? What's the point of all the labor, the exhaustion, the constant grind? You think of your fellow workers, those who share in the pain, the sweat, and the dust. You're all in this together, yet so alone. The world outside is so vast, and yet so indifferent. You wonder if things would have been different if you were born into a wealthier family, with more opportunities, but that's not the reality. This is Rome, and in Rome, survival is the only victory. You pull the blanket tighter around you, the rough wool scratching against your skin, and remind yourself that tomorrow is another day. It's not about winning, it's about surviving. And as long as you're still here, still moving forward, that's enough. The flicker of the fire, the last bit of warmth, the fire in the corner of your room flickers softly, its embers glowing in the darkness. The small flame is a small source of warmth in the otherwise cold room, and you watch it dance for a few moments before the heavy weight of sleep overtakes you again. The flames grow smaller, but the warmth still seeps into your tired bones. The crackling sound of the fire is comforting, almost as if it's trying to lull you to sleep, to take your mind off the worries of the day. But, as always, your thoughts soon wander back to the city outside, the empire that never sleeps, and the grind that starts again in the morning. The quiet end of the day, the world goes on. You close your eyes, letting the tiredness overtake you. The world outside may be noisy, chaotic, and relentless. But in this moment, in your small room, you have a brief respite. The weight of Rome's demands slips away for a moment, and you are left with the peace of the night, the quiet of your own thoughts. Tomorrow, the cycle begins again. But for now, as the fire burns low and the shadows stretch across the walls, you let yourself rest. The city will be there when you wake up. It always is. The unseen empire, the life of a Roman worker. Morning arrives like a relentless tide, pulling you out of sleep and back into the current of Rome's ceaseless rhythm. The light creeps over the stone floor as you slowly wake, feeling the familiar chill in the air. Another day. You turn over, rubbing your eyes, already anticipating the work that awaits you. You can feel the weight of the past day lingering on your body, the aches in your muscles, the grit in your eyes, the weariness that follows you like a shadow. But there's no time for lingering today. The empire waits for no one. A new day, a new battle. The work begins again. You rise from your bed of straw and pull on your tunic, the same worn clothes you've been wearing for weeks, months, maybe even years. There's no sense in holding on to the past, especially when tomorrow will be the same. You are nothing more than another cog in Rome's vast machine, and yet that is the only purpose you can grasp. The work awaits. As you gather your things, you look out the small hole in your wall. From your window, all you can see are rooftops, grey and dull, stretching across the horizon like an ocean of stone. There's no view of beauty, no sight of relief. All you see is Rome, its grandeur, its bustle, and its never-ending demand. The empire looms over you, and you are just a small part of it, trying to make it through. The streets of Rome, a relentless grind. You step out into the crowded streets once again. The air is already thick with the stench of people, animals, and the remnants of the day before. The city is awake. You can feel the pulse of the empire, the hum of activity as merchants shout their wares. Street vendors rush to set up their stalls, and the poor scurry through the crowds. The city is alive. But for you, it's just another day of survival. The morning rush is overwhelming, the streets packed with people moving in every direction. It feels like a wave you have to navigate, constantly moving, constantly dodging, trying not to get caught in the swell of bodies and noise. It's easy to get lost in it, to be just another face in the crowd. But you've learned to survive by staying focused on one thing. Getting through the day, the work site, a relentless cycle of labor. By the time you reach your destination, the work site, you're already drenched in sweat. The Roman sun has no mercy, beating down on you from above as you and the other workers gather around to begin the day's tasks. The foreman barks orders, moving between you all, his eyes sharp and calculating. He doesn't care about your discomfort. He cares about the work getting done, and that's all that matters. Your hands already hurt from yesterday's work, but there's no time to think about it. You pick up your tools and get to work, the rhythm of labor already ingrained in your bones. The stone walls you're constructing won't build themselves. The aqueducts, the roads, the temples, they all need labor, and you are here to provide it. No rest, nor reprieve, the sweat on your brow, the pain in your back. These are the marks of a worker in Rome. It's the price you pay for being alive in this city. A moment of reflection, a life in the shadows. As you dig, shovel after shovel, your mind wanders. The city above, so full of life and wealth, seems so far removed from you. You're here, beneath it all, buried in the dirt, out of sight. It's easy to forget that people like you even exist in a place like Rome, where the emperors and senators stand high above the rest of the world, their marble palaces glistening in the sun. You think about the streets you've walked, the people you've seen, the ones who pass by in their fine clothes, oblivious to the pain and sweat of those who made their world possible. The Roman Empire thrives on the backs of people like you, but the world doesn't care. You are nothing but a worker or a cog, a hand in a machine that never stops turning. But still, despite it all, you endure. You push through the exhaustion, the aches, the soreness, because that's what life in Rome demands. Survival is its own victory. The day drags on. Every step feels heavier. By midday, the heat has become unbearable. The work continues, unrelenting, but so do the aches in your body. Each strike of the hammer, each load of dirt, each brick laid down feels heavier than the last. Your muscles burn, your body protests, but you push through. There is no stopping, no room for weakness. If you falter, someone else will take your place, and then you will be nothing. The work becomes a blur. Your eyes stay focused on the task at hand, moving in sync with the rhythm of the day. There's no room for thought, just action. Just doing. The cycle of labor repeats itself over and over, until the sun begins to dip in the sky, signaling the end of your shift. The end of the day, a tired return. As the bell rings, signaling the end of the workday, you let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. The weight of the day finally lifts off your shoulders. If only for a moment, you gather your things, feeling every inch of your tired body. The journey home is long and exhausting, but it's a journey you've come to accept. The streets are still busy, the city still alive with activity, but you move through it with a new sense of purpose. You've survived another day. You've done what Rome demands of you, nothing more, but certainly nothing less. Back to the insula, the quiet before the storm. By the time you reach the door of your insula, the familiar sense of exhaustion is starting to settle in. You can hear the noise of the building, the chatter, the occasional argument, the sounds of people living their own versions of survival. You enter, your body aching, your mind too tired to think. You climb the rickety stairs, each step a reminder of the fragility of your home. But you don't care. You're almost there, almost to the one place in this city that is yours, even if only for a fleeting moment. You step inside your room, the small, dimly lit space offering a strange comfort. The fire is still burning in the corner, and you sit by it for a few moments, letting the warmth seep into your cold bones. A simple moment of peace, the quiet of home. The noise from the street seems to fade as you sit there, allowing yourself to be still. There's no work now, no labor, no demands, just the quiet of your room, the glow of the fire, and the knowledge that for tonight, you can rest. It's a fleeting feeling peace in a city that never stops moving. You lie down on your straw mattress, your body heavy with exhaustion, and for the first time today, you let yourself relax. Tomorrow, the grind will begin again, but for now, you are here. And in this moment, that's enough. The cycle continues. Tomorrow is another day. As sleep finally overtakes you, your last thoughts are simple. Survive, endure, repeat. Tomorrow, you'll rise again. You'll fight through the city's noise, and you'll push yourself through another grueling day, because that's what Rome demands. That's what you demand from yourself, to survive another day, and then another, and maybe, just maybe, find a small moment of peace along the way. The Roman Empire is relentless, but so are you. And that's why, despite everything, you keep going. The end of today, the dawn of tomorrow, as the fire flickers low and the sounds of Rome fade into the night. You drift into sleep, knowing that tomorrow will come. It always does. The price of survival, a city built on labor. The dawn comes quicker than you expected. You wake again to the sound of the city stirring, the rhythmic noise from the street's vendors shouting, carts rumbling, children playing is already becoming familiar. Rome doesn't wait. The empire, vast and relentless, demands the same of you. You pull yourself out of bed with the same groan, stretching the soreness out of your limbs. Your body feels heavy, like you're dragging it through a fog. But you know this feeling, well, it's the price of survival. The morning struggle, waking to reality. You slowly pull on your tunic, the same one from yesterday and the day before that. It's faded, worn, the fabric thin in places from overuse. But it's all you have. You stand in front of the small metal mirror again, brushing your hair with fingers that are rough from hard work. Your reflection isn't kind. The dark circles under your eyes, the dirt still clinging to your face from yesterday, are reminders of just how much of yourself you've given to this city. Rome is unforgiving, but there's no time to dwell. The world is still spinning outside, and you are a part of it. Whether you like it or not, you know the routine by heart. Eat, work, survive, repeat. Breakfast, a small comfort. A bitter reality. You don't even bother to sit down for breakfast. There's no time for that. You grab the stale bread you saved from yesterday and tear off a hasty piece, shoving it into your mouth as you grab your cloak and move toward the door. The bread is dry, and the watered-down wine you drink in place of morning coffee tastes more like vinegar than anything that could give you energy. But that's breakfast in Rome, practical and devoid of joy. Sustenance. It doesn't nourish the soul, but it keeps your body moving, and in the end, that's all that matters. The streets, a familiar chaos. Stepping outside, you're hit by the familiar chaos of Rome's streets. The city is already bustling, vendors calling out, animals barking, children darting through the crowds with careless energy. The noise is deafening, and it feels as if the whole world is revolving around you. Every morning, it's the same. People are moving, some with purpose, others aimlessly. You weave through the crowd, trying not to get caught in the crush. The merchants are setting up their stalls, shouting prices for their goods, their voices blending together in a cacophony. It's the pulse of Rome, the heartbeat of an empire. You don't stop, don't slow down. You're just one person in the midst of thousands. And yet, you know your place. You know you're here to work, to build, to serve. Your life isn't glamorous, but it's necessary. Rome needs you, and so you move forward, one foot in front of the other. As you've done for years now, the work site, a day's labor. By the time you reach the work site, the sun is already high in the sky, and the heat presses down like an invisible weight. The foreman is already barking orders, directing the other workers as they drag stones, move timber, and dig trenches. The air is thick with dust, and the smell of sweat and earth fills your nostrils. But none of that matters. There's no room for complaints here, just work. You join the line of workers, picking up your tools and getting to work. The stone is rough in your hands, the weight of it tiring your arms after only a few minutes. But you keep moving, driven by the unspoken rule of survival, don't stop. The work doesn't stop, and neither do you. Each swing of the hammer, each shovel full of dirt, is just another step in the cycle. There's no glory in this labor, no recognition. No one will ever remember your name, but that's not why you're here. You're here because this is Rome, and Rome doesn't care about the individual. It only cares about the empire. And the empire is built on the sweat of people like you. A brief break, an escape. For a moment, the bell rings, signaling a short break. You take the opportunity to wipe the sweat from your brow and drink from the communal water basin. It's cool, but not enough to offer any real relief. You take a moment to rest, leaning against a stone column. Looking around at your fellow workers, you're not the only one tired. Everyone here looks the same, exhausted, worn, their bodies just as beaten down by the harsh realities of labor as yours. Yet, there's a strange sense of camaraderie in that. You may not know their names, but you know their struggle. It's the struggle of survival. For a brief moment, you let yourself reflect. You think of the world outside of Rome, of other places that might be quieter, less demanding, less exhausting. But as quickly as that thought enters your mind, you push it aside. This is your life now. You can't afford to dream of anything else. The relentless work, a day that won't end. The break ends far too soon, and you're back to the grind. The hours stretch ahead, each one heavier than the last. Your back aches, your hands blister, and the sweat pours down your face in streams. But you keep going. As the sun begins to dip in the sky, signaling the end of your shift, you can feel every part of your body screaming in protest. But there's no celebration, no rest. You finish what you're doing and gather your things, ready to head back into the streets. You look around, noticing the others just as tired as you. Some of them are already talking about tomorrow's work, already thinking ahead, and you wonder if you'll ever feel like you can stop. But for now, you take a breath. Another day done. Heading home, a small refuge in the chaos. The walk back to the insula is slow. Your body feels like it's made of stone, and you can hardly keep your eyes open. But as you approach the familiar entrance, you feel a small bit of relief. Home, even if it's not much. The city has taken so much from you, but the insula is still yours, even if it's just for tonight. You climb the stairs, the old wood creaking under your feet, and push open the door to your room. It's as bare and cold as always, but it's familiar. It's a place where you can rest, even if just for a few hours. A moment of quiet, reflection in the stillness. You sink into your bed of straw and close your eyes. The noise of Rome, the clang of the marketplace, and the busy streets fade into the distance. For now, there's quiet. You allow yourself to sink into it, to enjoy the stillness of your room, the brief respite before the world demands your attention again. As the fire crackles in the corner, you let yourself reflect. But just for a moment, tomorrow is another day, and in the world of Rome, there is no room to waste time dwelling on what might have been, or what could be. There's only survival. Tomorrow, you will rise again. Tomorrow, you will work again. And tomorrow, Rome will continue, because that is how empires are built. The end of the day, a quiet pause. And with that thought, sleep begins to take you. The world outside may be brutal, unrelenting, and full of hardship. But here, in the stillness of your room, you find a moment of peace. And maybe, for a fleeting moment, that's enough. The never-ending cycle, Rome's unyielding demand. The morning arrives far too soon. You blink against the first rays of sunlight seeping through the cracks in your walls. It's already bright outside, and the city is stirring, just like it does every day. The noise begins to seep into your small room. Creeping in through the thin walls, the city never truly sleeps. The feeling of exhaustion lingers in your bones from yesterday's labor, but there's no time to indulge in it. You stretch, feeling the ache in your muscles, the weariness that comes from work after work. Another day, another battle. You get out of bed slowly, every movement deliberate. The routine feels like a loop, a cycle that stretches out before you with no end in sight. But this is Rome, and survival means moving forward, no matter how many times the cycle repeats. Morning ritual, a reluctant start. You pull yourself together, dragging yourself to the small corner where you keep your belongings. The tunic you wore yesterday is the same one you put on today. It's worn thin from use, and the fabric feels rough against your skin. You make quick work of putting it on. The routine too familiar to think about. You can't afford to dwell on the details of the day ahead. Your reflection in the small metal mirror is the same as always. The face that stares back at you is tired, exhausted, even, but it's still yours. The dark circles under your eyes have deepened overnight, a silent reminder of the long hours that stretch into each day. But in a city like Rome, where there's always something to do, there's no time to waste on exhaustion. You grab the bread from last night and break off a piece. It's dry, hard, and has lost any semblance of flavour, but it'll fill you up for a few hours. That's all breakfast in Rome ever is. The streets of Rome, moving through the chaos, you step out into the streets once again, feeling the rush of the city close in on you. The air is already thick with the sounds of life bustling, chaotic, relentless. The vendors are shouting their prices as people rush past, trying to get their goods, trying to sell what they have, trying to survive. The streets are full of life, yet full of danger. There's always a sense of urgency, a pulse that makes your heart race even before the workday begins. The crowd swells around you as you make your way down the cobblestone roads, your body moving instinctively to avoid the inevitable jostling. You know the rhythm of the streets by now, the ebb and flow of the crowd, the shifting pathways. It's all part of surviving Rome. The work site, the unforgiving day ahead. As you reach the work site, the heat of the Roman sun is already beating down. The air feels thick and oppressive, but it's the least of your worries. The foreman is shouting orders again, his voice sharp and demanding. There's no sympathy here, no care for how tired you are, no understanding of the pain in your body. Work is work, and that's what you're here for. The stones are heavy, the tools rough in your hands. But you don't stop. There's no room for hesitation, no time for thinking about the ache in your muscles or the sweat dripping down your face. You simply push forward, each movement more automatic than the last, each strike of the hammer, each load of stone carried, each stretch of muscle that protests is just another part of this day's grind. It's the same as yesterday. And the day before that, the work is never ending. The demand is constant. But you keep moving because there's nothing else to do. The moment of escape, lunch break. By midday, the heat is unbearable, the sun is high, and your body is drenched in sweat. You try to focus on your task, but the burning fatigue makes it harder to concentrate. When the bell rings, signaling a short lunch break, you can't help but feel a sense of relief wash over you, a brief respite. It's not much, but it's all you can hope for in this life. You take a seat on the stone bench, your muscles aching in protest. The bread you brought with you is stale, but it's enough to satisfy the hunger that's been gnawing at you all morning. The water is lukewarm, and you drink it down quickly. The brief pause gives you a chance to catch your breath, to take a step back and simply exist for a moment. It's fleeting, but it's something. As you sit there, looking around at your fellow workers, you realize you're not alone in this. Everyone here, all around you, shares the same exhaustion, the same weariness. The work, the grind, it affects everyone. But in this moment, there's a strange comfort in that. You're not just a single body in a sea of labour. You are part of something bigger. Rome. Back to work. The relentless hours. Lunch ends too soon. You stand, your body stiff from the rest. But knowing the work must continue, you head back to the site, your mind already steeling itself for the hours of labour ahead. The sun is still high, and the heat presses down even harder now. Each step back to the worksite feels like a battle, a mental preparation for the grind that won't stop until the day is done. As you get back to your task, the hours stretch ahead of you like an endless horizon. Each stone feels heavier than the last, each movement slower than the one before it. But there's no time to think about that. The foreman is still yelling orders, still moving between the workers, his presence a constant reminder that there's no room for weakness in this world. The end of the day, a moment of peace. When the bell rings, signaling the end of the workday. You can hardly believe it. The day has stretched on for what feels like an eternity, each moment blending into the next. You gather your tools, wipe the sweat from your brow, and make your way back to the insula. You don't have the energy to think, just the instinct to move, to get to your bed and rest. The streets are quieter now as the day fades, the rush of workers thinning out. You pass by a few familiar faces, workers who share in the daily struggle, people who have become part of the landscape of your life in Rome. There's no conversation between you and them. The silence says everything. Back to the insula, a brief rest. You make it back to your room, the familiar creak of the stairs greeting you as you climb up to your floor. The door creaks open, and you step into the small, dimly lit space. You drop your tools, peel off your tunic, and collapse onto your bed of straw. The exhaustion is overwhelming, your muscles aching, but it's a good kind of tired. It's the kind of tired that means you made it through another day. You sit up for a moment, looking around the room. It's cold, sparse, but it's yours. There's comfort in that. The fire in the corner crackles, and for a moment, you just sit there in the silence, letting it wash over you. The day is over. For now, you can rest. A moment of reflection, surviving Rome, as you lie down on your straw mattress, the weight of the day still heavy on your chest. Your mind drifts for a moment. You think about Rome, the grand city that looms over you every single day. You think about the emperors, the senators, the wealth, and the power, and then you think about your place in it, all the small part you play in keeping the empire running. You may not have power, you may not have wealth, but you have something else: resilience. You've learned to survive here, to endure, and that's enough for today. Tomorrow, the grind will start again, and you will face it like you always do, with grit, with endurance, and with the quiet strength that gets you through, the quiet resilience, strength in the shadows. The next morning feels just as inevitable as the last. As the sun rises and the noise of Rome starts to swell, you open your eyes to the same unyielding reality. The weight of yesterday's labor clings to you, but there's no room to complain. The empire needs you. The empire has always needed you. The familiar ache in your back greets you before you even lift your head off the rough straw pillow. Your body remembers every step, every lift, every stone moved. The exhaustion that has settled into your bones is constant, but you've learned how to push through it. You've learned that rest is a luxury that doesn't come often. So, you get up, you stretch, and you prepare to face another day. The relentless routine, a cycle of survival. Your tunic, crumpled and worn from yesterday, is pulled on again. There's no time for pride in how you look. There's no room for vanity. All that matters is the next task. The next step. You move in a rhythm that is automatic by now, so ingrained that even your mind doesn't have time to catch up with your body. Eat, work, survive. That's the rhythm you've fallen into. Your hand reaches for the stale bread from last night, and you tear off a chunk, chewing quickly. It's not satisfying, but it's enough to get you through to the next meal. Rome doesn't care if you're satisfied. It only cares that you keep working, keep building, keep pushing forward. The streets, a familiar battle. You step into the street again, feeling the familiar crush of bodies, the constant hum of noise, and the urgency that fills the air. The markets are already in full swing. The sound of shouting vendors, the clatter of carts, the distant bleating of sheep. All of it blends together into a chaotic symphony that is Rome. The faces around you are tired, just like yours. Everyone has their own battle to fight. You see the same people, the same faces, each struggling with their own burdens, their own lives. And yet, none of them look at you. None of them see you. You are a part of the crowd, a small cog in a much larger machine. But you are here. You matter, even if no one else notices. The worksite, a place where time stops. The worksite doesn't care about your exhaustion. The foreman doesn't care about your aches. He only cares that you keep moving. The empire keeps moving, and so must you. You arrive at the site, the familiar dusty air hitting you as you step onto the ground. The sun is already burning high, and the heat is a constant pressure, the weight of it wrapping around you like a heavy cloak. But there's no time to feel it. You have a job to do. The stone is rough under your hands, the wood splintering as you grip it. The work is brutal, But it's the only work, you know, and as the hours drag on, you become numb to the pain, to the sweat, to the sun. It's just another day in Rome. The work doesn't stop, the labor doesn't slow. You keep going. A shared struggle, the workers' bond. As the morning turns to afternoon, you steal a glance at your fellow workers. You're all in this together. The sweat drips from their brows, just as it drips from yours. The strain of the labor is visible in their faces, in their movements, but there's something else there, too, a shared understanding. You don't speak much. You don't need to. The struggle is silent. The camaraderie unspoken. You see the same fatigue in their eyes, the same quiet acceptance. They, too, are just trying to make it through another day, and you are not alone in that. For a brief moment, you are all connected by this shared experience. The weight of the stones, the heat of the sun, the ache of your muscles. This is Rome's secret. It's not in the grandeur of the Colosseum or the marble of the Senate. It's in the shared sweat of the workers who keep the empire running, one brick at a time. A moment of quiet, lunch break. The bell rings, signaling a brief respite. You and your fellow workers make your way to the small patch of shade where you rest for a few moments. You sit on the ground, eating your meager lunch. Bread, a small piece of cheese, and a few olives. It's not much, but it's enough to keep you going. You take a drink from the communal water basin, the water lukewarm. But it's a welcome relief from the heat. You take a moment to breathe, to slow down, even if just for a minute. This small break is a gift. But even in this quiet, your mind can't help but wander back to the work, the grind, the constant pressure of Rome. You'll be back at it soon. You'll be back to lifting, hammering, digging. The cycle will continue. The afternoon, the same struggle. The break ends too soon. You return to the work site, your body heavy with fatigue, but your mind steeled. You pick up the tools again, your hands instinctively going through the motions. There's no room for hesitation. The sun is high now, its rays burning down relentlessly, but you don't stop. You just keep moving. The sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes, but you don't wipe it away. The work has become a blur, just a series of actions to be completed until the day is done. By now, the hours have melded together. You don't notice the pain, the heat, the exhaustion. All you know is that you keep going. The end of the day, relief and resignation. Finally, the bell rings. The end of the day, the relief is almost overwhelming. You gather your things, too tired to even think, and begin the long walk back to your insula. The streets are less crowded now, the rush of workers thinning out. It's quieter, but the fatigue of the day hangs heavily in the air. It's the silence of exhaustion as you walk through the streets. The weight of the day lifts slightly. You're still aching, still tired. But there's a brief moment of peace. You survived. Another day in Rome. Another day of hard work and endless demands. But you're still here. You make your way up the stairs to your room, each step feeling like a mountain. The climb is always the hardest part of the day, but it's familiar. It's the final stretch, the final hurdle before you can collapse into bed and rest. Home, the only place you can rest. You open the door to your room, and the quiet of it is a relief. You drop your things, and for a moment, you stand still, allowing yourself to breathe. The fire is still crackling in the corner, the soft glow offering a small comfort in the otherwise cold room. You lie down on your bed of straw, your body grateful for the chance to stop moving. The work is over. For today. And for now, that's enough. As you lie there, your mind drifts again. Tomorrow will come. The work will start again. The grind will continue. But for now, there is rest. There is peace. And in this moment, that's all you need. The quiet end of the day. Another cycle begins. The fire slowly dims, the embers turning to ash. The sounds of the city fade into the distance. And for a brief moment, there is quiet. You close your eyes, knowing that tomorrow the cycle will begin again. But tonight, you rest. Tomorrow, you rise again. The empire waits, the calm before the storm, finding resilience. The morning comes too soon. You wake with the same heaviness in your chest, the same ache in your bones. The room is dim, and for a moment, you almost wish you could sink back into the quiet stillness, into that brief respite from the unrelenting demand of Rome. But even in your exhaustion, you know that sleep doesn't stop the grind. With a sigh, you sit up, the straw mattress scratching at your skin as you slowly peel yourself away from the bed. The sun is already filtering through the cracks in the walls, spilling its light into the room in streaks. The familiar chill lingers in the air, a reminder that winter is coming. But for now, the heat of the day will soon overtake you. You don't have time to think about it. Another day is waiting for you. The morning ritual, the same hunger. You pull on your tunic, its fabric worn and threadbare from months of use, and make your way over to the small table. You pick up the stale bread left from yesterday and tear a piece off, chewing mechanically as your mind begins to focus on the day ahead. It's the same routine every morning. Eat quickly, prepare yourself for the day, and get to work. There's no indulgence, no enjoyment, just sustenance. Nothing more, nothing less. You grab your cloak, the weight of it familiar against your shoulders, and step out the door into the world of Rome. The chaos of the city welcomes you as always, the rush of people, the noise, the smell of the streets, the sound of the market vendors already shouting out their prices. You step into the current of humanity, just another face among the many, already on your way to the next task. The streets, navigating through chaos. The streets are already packed as you weave through the crowd, trying not to get jostled too much. The city never rests, never slows down. It's always moving, always alive with a strange, relentless energy. You can feel it in your bones, the pulse of Rome. There's an urgency in the air, a sense that every moment counts. Even if you're just trying to survive, you push forward, shoulders hunched against the noise, your eyes scanning for familiar faces. But no one notices you. It's just another day, another walk through the streets of Rome. The rush of the crowd makes you feel like a part of something bigger. But it also makes you feel invisible, just another worker in the shadows of a mighty empire. The worksite, the demands of Rome. By the time you reach the worksite, the sun is already high in the sky, and the heat is already unbearable. The foreman is shouting orders, his voice slicing through the air as he moves from worker to worker. His eyes are sharp and demanding, and there's no room for weakness. You pick up your tools and get to work, the weight of the stone familiar beneath your hands. The work is grueling. As always, the stones feel heavy, the sun feels hotter, and the sweat runs down your back in thick streams. But there's no time to stop, no room for exhaustion. You push through, one task at a time. This is the life you've known for so long. The workers around you don't speak much. The rhythm of labor is enough. The sweat on your brow is enough. The only thing that matters is that the work is done. You are here to build Rome. Even if it means your body feels like it might break at any moment. And you're not alone in this. The others around you are doing the same. They're feeling the same exhaustion, the same ache in their muscles, the same weight of the day, the afternoon grind, the endurance of Rome's workers. As the day stretches on, the hours become one long blur. The sun beats down, the air grows thicker, and the stones you're working with seem to grow heavier with each passing moment. The fatigue in your body is overwhelming, but you don't stop. You can't, not yet, not when there's still work to be done. Rome demands it. There are moments, brief flashes, where you think about what it might be like to simply stop, to walk away from the work, to leave the noise, the sweat, the labor. But those thoughts are fleeting. The thought of leaving Rome behind doesn't make sense. This city, this empire, it's part of you, even if it feels like it's crushing you beneath its weight. So, you keep moving. You lift the stone. You hammer the nails. You lay the brick. The rhythm of the work is almost comforting in its predictability. The weariness in your bones becomes a constant hum in the background, a reminder that you are still here. The brief respite, lunch break. The bell rings for lunch, and for a moment, you feel the briefest moment of relief. You grab what's left of your bread and sit down on the stone steps, trying to eat in peace. But there's no real quiet, there's no real pause. Even at lunch, the work site hums with activity. The foreman still barks orders, the workers still toil, and the world keeps turning. The bread you've brought with you is dry and tasteless, but it fills your stomach for the time being. You take a quick sip of water from the communal basin, the liquid barely cool enough to quench your thirst. But you don't care. You just need to keep moving. As you sit there, catching your breath, you glance around at the other workers. Everyone's faces are etched with the same exhaustion. No one speaks much. There's no need. The work does the talking. The long afternoon, endless hours of labor. When the break is over, you return to the work site, and the hours stretch ahead of you again. The afternoon heat feels even more oppressive now. You're drenched in sweat. Your clothes cling to your body, and your muscles are sore from hours of lifting, digging, hammering, but the work never stops. You know that the day feels endless, the labor seemingly unending. Every step, every movement is a battle against the fatigue, the hunger, and the pain. But there is no other choice. The work must be finished. The Empire demands it. The end of the day, another victory in survival. At last, the bell rings to signal the end of the workday. You gather your things and make your way out of the work site, your body screaming for rest. The walk back to the insula feels longer than it has in ages, each step heavy with the exhaustion of the day. The streets are quieter now, but the weight of the city still presses against you. The grind has taken its toll. You make your way to the door of your insula, climb the stairs with slow, deliberate steps, and finally, after what feels like an eternity, you open the door to your room. The familiar coldness of the stone walls greets you. The fire crackles in the corner, a small flicker of warmth in the otherwise dim room. You collapse onto the straw mattress, too tired to even remove your tunic. Another day is done. You survived. That's all that matters. For now, you can rest, a brief moment of peace, rest before the grind begins again. You close your eyes and let the exhaustion take you. Tomorrow will come, and the cycle will start again. But for now, you rest. For tonight, the Empire can wait. Tonight, you are allowed to simply be. Tomorrow, you will rise again. But tonight, you can let go, even if it's just for a few hours. The quiet resilience, embracing the struggle. The city has not forgotten you. The morning light breaks through the cracks in your walls, softly reminding you of the world outside. The rhythm of the city starts to crawl into your consciousness once again. The chatter of vendors, the clattering of carts, the distant murmur of footsteps on stone. It's a sound that has become your life's soundtrack. As your eyes flutter open, the familiar ache in your bones rises to greet you, a reminder that you are alive, but not without cost. You pull yourself out of bed, the straw mattress creaking under your weight. The room is cold, and the air smells faintly of smoke and dampness. But this is home. It may not be comfortable, but it's where you rest after a hard day. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself for another day in the unyielding arms of Rome. Morning ritual. The cycle begins again. The morning routine unfolds as it always does. You roll out of bed, stretching your stiff body, and pull on your tunic, a simple piece of cloth that's seen too many days. The fabric is worn, the color faded. But it's what you've got. You've learned that things like comfort, or even pride, don't come easily in Rome. You wear what you have, and you make do. You gather the stale bread from last night, tearing off a piece as you think of the long day ahead. The bread is dry, but it will fill you enough to make it through the next few hours. There's no luxury in it, no sweetness. It's just food. Rome doesn't offer anything more. You swallow the bread down quickly, grab your cloak, and step out the door. The city calls to you. It doesn't wait for anyone. It's always on the move, always demanding. The streets of Rome, the daily battle. The familiar chaos of Rome greets you as you step into the street. The crowd is thick, bodies moving in every direction, each person absorbed in their own task, their own survival. The vendors shout out their prices, trying to grab your attention, but you don't stop. You move with purpose, weaving through the throng of people. It's strange how you've come to blend into this city, how you've become just another face in the crowd. No one notices you, and that's both a blessing and a curse. The anonymity means you can move through the streets without anyone knowing who you are, without anyone seeing your struggle. But it also means you don't matter to the city. You're just another worker, another cog in a machine that never stops. But even in that anonymity, there's a strange comfort. The city moves on without you, and yet you keep moving forward. The city doesn't stop, and neither do you. The work site, the weight of Rome's demands. You reach the work site, where the foreman's sharp voice cuts through the air. He's barking orders as always. pushing the workers to do more, to be faster, to build faster. Rome waits for no one. The sun is already high, the heat rising off the stones, and you feel it in your bones. But there's no time to think about it. You pick up your tools and begin to work, your body moving on autopilot. You've done this for years, lifting stone, hammering nails, digging trenches. The tasks are endless, and they always seem to multiply. The work is grueling, but it's what you know, and even though it feels like you're breaking under the weight of it, you keep moving. This is the life you have. The stone is heavy, the labor endless, but the rhythm of the work is familiar. There's no thinking, no contemplating the meaning of it all. You just do it. The shared struggle, bonds of survival. As the day stretches on, you notice the faces of the other workers around you. They're all the same, tired, worn, covered in sweat and dust. But there's something unspoken between you, a shared understanding. You don't need words. The struggle is clear on every face. You're all in the same boat, trying to survive this grind together. For some, it's a temporary hardship. For others, it's a lifelong sentence. But no one stops. No one complains. There is no room for that here. You're all part of the same system, working under the same unspoken rule. Survive, or be forgotten. Lunch break, a brief respite. When the bell rings for lunch, you feel a brief sense of relief. You grab your meager food and sit down on the stone steps, trying to ignore the exhaustion that has settled deep into your bones. The bread is dry, the cheese hard, but it's food. You eat quickly, as always, because there's no time to waste. The workers around you sit in silence, eating the same tasteless food, their faces blank, their minds likely already thinking about the work ahead. You exchange a few nods with the others, but there are no conversations. There's no time for chatter. The work waits for no one, not even for lunch. Back to work, the unseen labor. The break ends too soon, and the reality of the work site looms again. You grab your tools and return to the task at hand. The sun is still high, the heat relentless, but your body has already gone numb to it. You push forward, one task at a time, the rhythm of your labor comforting in its predictability. There's no joy in this work. There's no glory. It's just a series of motions, one after another, a never-ending cycle, and you have no choice but to keep going. This is your life. This is what Rome has asked of you, and you will give it the end of the day, a familiar exhaustion. The bell rings again, signaling the end of the workday. You gather your things and make your way out of the site, your muscles aching, your body screaming for rest. But there's no rest yet. The walk back to your insula feels longer than it ever has before. Each step is a reminder of the strain of the day, of the toll this labor has taken on your body. The streets are quieter now, the hustle of the day winding down. You make your way home, the fatigue almost overwhelming. But you know it's just part of the cycle. Tomorrow, the grind will start again. But for now, you can rest, home, a place to recover. For a moment, you reach your insula and climb the stairs to your small room. The door creaks open, and you step inside, the familiar smell of damp stone and firewood greeting you. It's not much, but it's yours. You drop your tools and fall onto your straw mattress, too tired to even undress. The fire crackles in the corner, its warmth a small comfort. But the exhaustion is so deep in your body that you can hardly feel it. The day is over. You've made it through. But tomorrow will come, and the grind will start again. The empire doesn't stop, and neither do you. A moment of reflection, surviving Rome. As you lie there, your eyes closed, the weight of the day heavy on your chest. You think for a moment about the life you lead. It's not easy, it's not glamorous, but it's life. And in a city like Rome, sometimes that's enough. You've learned to endure. You've learned that survival is its own form of victory. The empire demands so much from you, and you give it. Tomorrow, you will rise again. The work will continue. The city will demand. But for now, you rest. And that's all you can ask for. The cycle continues. Tomorrow awaits. You close your eyes, the exhaustion settling into your limbs. And for a moment, you let go. Tomorrow, the cycle will begin again. But tonight, you have this moment. And for tonight, that's enough. The empire doesn't stop, but for now, you do. The long road ahead, lessons in perseverance. The dawn breaks once more, unrelenting. You open your eyes, blinking against the pale light that filters into the room. It's the same as it always is, quiet at first. The stillness only broken by the sounds of the city beginning to stir. The cries of the early vendors, the distant rumble of carts, the murmurs of the marketplace, waking up Rome, is never truly silent. You take a deep breath, your body still sore from the constant push of the days before. But there's no time to dwell on it. The sun rises, and so do you. The empire doesn't care if you're tired or if you ache. It only cares if you keep moving. You force yourself out of bed, the straw mattress scratching at your skin, and stand. The familiar weight of exhaustion clings to you. But you've grown used to it. Rome doesn't wait for rest. Morning ritual, embracing the struggle. You reach for your tunic, its fabric worn and faded, and put it on. It's not a choice, it's the only thing you have. The bread from yesterday is all you have for breakfast. And you chew it quickly, without savoring. It's dry and tough, but it will fill your stomach, at least for a little while. Rome doesn't care about your hunger. It doesn't care about your needs. You pick up your cloak and head for the door, the cool air of the early morning greeting you as you step into the streets. The city waits for no one. You step into the rhythm of the day. The rhythm that's been your life for as long as you can remember. There's no time to waste. You have a role to play, a task to complete, and Rome has no patience for anything less. The streets, the relentless current. The streets are as crowded as ever, filled with the sound of footsteps, voices, and the incessant calls of vendors. The smell of fish, fruit, and spices mingles with the dust of the road. It's the same every day, the same relentless push and pull. People rushing to and fro, trying to survive, trying to make their way in a city that demands everything of them. You navigate through the crowd, your body moving automatically, avoiding the jostling bodies without thinking about it. There's no room for hesitation here. The city swallows you whole. And if you don't move with it, you'll be left behind. For a brief moment, you think about how you've become part of this city, the way it pulses through your veins, how you've learned to survive here, not because you wanted to, but because you had no choice. Rome is in your bones now. The worksite. Another day, another battle. By the time you reach the worksite, the sun is already burning hot in the sky. The foreman is shouting orders, pushing the workers harder than ever. No one is ever given enough time to rest. You take your place with the others, picking up your tools and getting to work. The weight of the stone in your hands is familiar. The strain in your muscles a constant reminder of what this life demands. The hours drag on, each one blending into the next. The sun beats down relentlessly, and the dust rises in the air with every movement. The labor never stops, and neither do you. You lift, hammer, dig over and over, again and again, until your body feels like it's on the verge of breaking. But you push through it, because that's all you can do. You've learned that pain is a constant here. So is exhaustion. But as long as you keep moving, you're surviving, and surviving is enough in Rome. The shared struggle, a silent understanding. You glance at the other workers around you. There's no need for words. You see the same exhaustion in their faces, the same weariness in their eyes. They are all part of this cycle. Just like you, some look older than their years. Their bodies bent from the weight of the work. Others are younger, but you can see the strain already starting to show. The work is unforgiving, and it will wear you down, but you keep going, because that's what Rome demands. In the silence of the worksite, there is a bond that forms between the workers. You don't speak much, but you understand each other. You don't need to talk about how tired you are, how much your body aches. Everyone here feels the same, and yet, there's a strange comfort in that. The struggle is the same for everyone. You are not alone in this. Even though Rome tries to break you down, the collective resilience of those around you reminds you that survival is possible. You will make it through this. The break, a fleeting moment of rest. When the bell rings for lunch, you're almost too tired to move. The break is short, but it's enough to give you a few moments of peace. You sit down on a stone bench, the brief respite feeling like a small victory. The bread you brought with you is just as dry as always, but you eat it quickly, not caring about the taste. It's enough to get you through the next few hours. You drink from the communal water basin, the liquid lukewarm, but it's a relief. The body needs it, even if the water isn't ideal. The brief break is almost all you get, but it's enough to remind you that you're still alive, still here, still in the fight, the grind, the relentless push forward. When the break ends, the work resumes. The foreman doesn't give you any time to recover. The demands are still high, the pace still fast, the sun is beating down, and every movement feels like it's draining what little energy you have left. But you don't stop. You keep moving forward, because you have no other choice. The hours continue to drag on. The stone, the sweat, the aches, all of it blends together into one long blur. But you keep working. The cycle never ends. The empire doesn't stop, and so neither can you. You push through the exhaustion, the pain, the hunger, because that's what Rome requires. That's what you were born into. The end of the day, the relief of survival. Finally, the bell rings to signal the end of the day. You gather your tools, your body heavy with the weight of the day's work, and you begin your walk back to your insula. The streets are quieter now, the hustle of the day winding down. The crowds have thinned, but the city is still alive. The hum of activity never quite stops. As you climb the stairs to your room, you feel the relief of finally being done for the day. The bed of straw welcomes you. Though it's not much, it's yours. You collapse onto it, too exhausted to think, too worn out to care about anything other than the fact that you made it through another day. Home, a brief respite. You lie there, the faint warmth from the crackling fire in the corner providing a small comfort. The fatigue is overwhelming, but it's a good kind of tired. You've survived. Another day in the books. Tomorrow. It all starts again. The work, the grind, the demands of Rome. But for now, you have this moment, this brief respite. The city may never stop, but you have the right to rest tonight. A moment of reflection. What keeps you going? As you lie there, the exhaustion sinking into your bones, your mind drifts. You think about the life you lead, the hard labor, the unyielding demands, the endless cycle. You think about the empire you are a part of, how it is both your burden and your survival. And in that moment, you realize something. You are not weak. You are resilient. You endure because you have to, because there is no other choice. In a world that tries to break you down, you stand tall, even if it's just for a moment. Rome may take everything from you, but it can't take your will to survive. The cycle, always moving, always surviving. The night stretches on, and as you close your eyes, the cycle of tomorrow already begins in your mind. You will rise again. You will face the work. You will survive, because that is what Rome demands of you. Tomorrow, the empire will call, and you will answer.